Nation shall rise against nation, and kingdom against kingdom. There shall be famines and pestilences and earthquakes, and this gospel of the kingdom shall be preached in all the world, and then shall the end come.
Tell us, when will these things be? And what will be the sign of your coming and of the end of the age?
Israel's Biblical Destiny, Part 2. Let's pause a moment to review Part 1. God promised the land of Israel to the Jewish people. He admonished them to not make any covenant with the non-Jews of the land. In other words, Israel should annex all the land of Israel, and the U.S. should immediately move our embassy to Jerusalem. Now, that's what we should do if we're going to abide by the teachings of God's Word. However, many Jews in Israel are opposed to this course of action. It appears that Prime Minister Netanyahu himself favors a two-state solution. So let's dive in. The present situation. During the 8 years of the Obama administration, it was no secret that tensions were strong between President Obama and Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu. Obama had pressured Israel hard to suspend building in the settlements and in East Jerusalem. When the Republican Party published their 2016 party platform, relief and excitement was felt throughout Israel. The Republican platform was more friendly toward Israel than any other political platform had ever been. Now, prior to this, Obama had openly made a speech calling for Israel to conclude a peace deal along 67 border lines with some minor land swaps. Obama had attempted to box Israel in, so this platform was a breath of fresh air. Now, let's look for a little bit at the Republican Party platform. It called for moving the U.S. Embassy to Jerusalem. Now, we've got to pause here just a moment so everyone will fully appreciate what's going on. God said 37 times in the Old Testament, I will put my name in Jerusalem. That's the place where God sent Abraham to raise the knife over his son Isaac as a test of his faith. And that's also the exact place, I'm talking about the Temple Mount in Jerusalem, where the first temple was built. God answered by fire when they gave their sacrifice of dedication for the time of dedicating the first temple. That's the place where the second temple was built, and that's the temple that Jesus himself taught in. Well, our Congress, understanding these things from the Bible, passed a resolution in 1995, passed a law in 1995, that the U.S. Embassy in Israel had to be moved to Jerusalem. Many of the presidents had said they would do it, but they were afraid to do it, or for some reason they didn't do it. Now the Congress decided to take it out of the hands of the president and create a law. You must move our embassy to Jerusalem, and we must recognize Jerusalem as the eternal united capital of Israel by 1995. However, the Congress left a loophole, something you never want to do in politics. If there's a loophole, the politicians will use it. The loophole was this. They said in the law that if it would endanger national security, the president can apply for a waiver to Congress once every 6 months. It's not a permanent waiver. It's a waiver that lasts for 6 months. Then the law kicks back in. Well, immediately the presidents began to exercise that waiver every single time. So every 6 months since 1995, Presidents Clinton, Bush, and Obama filed the waiver with Congress. It's 20-some times between the time this was passed and today. Always to get around moving our embassy to Jerusalem, even though President George W. Bush emphatically stated, the day of my inauguration, I will move the embassy to Jerusalem. But he was inaugurated twice, and guess what? The embassy still sits in Tel Aviv. The UN has lobbied hard to get all the embassies out of Jerusalem, and they've succeeded totally. There's not one embassy left in Jerusalem. They've all moved to Tel Aviv, sending the very certain message the world community does not recognize Jerusalem as the capital of Israel. Now, let me remind you that the United Nations allows every state to choose its own capital, and the United Nations recognizes the capital of every single nation in the world except for one. It does not recognize Jerusalem as the capital. And there is more to this than a mere political conflict. This is because God said, I will put my name there. So the spiritual struggle over possession of Jerusalem began. Now, back to the Republican platform. They stated there, we reject the false notion that Israel is an occupier. Now, Obama loved to say, this is occupied territory. The United Nations continually referred to it as occupied territory. Now the Republicans are saying, we reject the notion, the false notion, that Israel is an occupier because of its presence in the areas of Judea, Samaria, commonly referred to as the West Bank. Then, more recently, they have argued, look, the Chinese are from China. The Japanese are called Japanese because they're from Japan. And the Jews are called Jews because they're from Judea. Judea is the West Bank. And so the argument is very powerful. Look, you're saying the Jews have no right here, and yet they're called Jews because they're from Judea. Well, the Republican platform went on to say, we oppose any measures intended to impose an agreement or to dictate borders or other terms. And we call for the immediate termination of all U.S. funding of any entity that attempts to do so. So the Republican Party says America needs to use its financial power to keep nations from discriminating against Israel. Also in the Republican platform, no mention of a two-state solution. Now, for those people who take the Bible seriously, they know that the Bible tells Israel not to give away any of this land. And there are politicians in Israel that stand firm on that. Mr. Naftali Bennett, the Secretary of Education in Israel's government and a key member of Netanyahu's coalition, he says no to the establishment of a Palestinian state on promised land ground. However, many others waver on that point. Okay, now we're talking about where are we today as far as the conflict in the Middle East goes. Just before leaving office, after he already was voted out of office with the elections of 2016, on December the 23rd, just less than a month before he was scheduled to vacate the White House, Obama decided to participate in a resolution against Israel. Now, the protesters are going to say he merely abstained. But America has a longstanding policy of protecting Israel against negative resolutions at the UN using the U.S. veto power. And we've done it 41 times since 1972. However, the Obama government had warned Netanyahu, you better get a two-state solution because we're not guaranteeing you that we're going to use our veto power anymore. Well, they made good on their threat. Once the election was lost, once Obama's not running for office again because he knows this is very unpopular with the American people, Resolution 2334 was passed by the UN Security Council on December the 23rd, 2016. The worst thing the UN has ever done against the nation of Israel. Now, here are three provisions of UN Resolution 2334. Listen to it. Number one, reaffirms that the establishment by Israel of settlements in the Palestinian territory occupied since 1967, listen carefully, including East Jerusalem, has no legal validity and constitutes a flagrant violation under international law and a major obstacle to the achievement of the two-state solution and a just, lasting, and comprehensive peace. Part two, it reiterates its demand that Israel immediately and completely cease all settlement activities in the occupied Palestinian territory, including East Jerusalem, and that it fully respect all of its legal obligations in this regard. Section 3 underlines that it will not recognize, now this is the United Nations, the world community, underlines that it will not recognize any changes to the June 4, 1967 lines, including with regard to Jerusalem, now listen to this clause, other than those agreed by the parties through negotiations. Now, since the UN says we're going to stick with the 67 borders unless the parties would decide to change it, well, you think the Palestinians are going to say, since the world community's already said those are the borders, unless out of the goodness of their heart the Palestinians decide to negotiate part of their territory away, they would be foolish to say, yes, we want to give part of it away. So what has happened is the UN has come down solidly on the side of the Palestinians that Israel has to totally withdraw to 1967 borders. Now, this contradicts previous UN resolutions saying the borders must be settled through negotiation. Now they're saying we'll never recognize any border unless the Palestinians want us to. And our government, under Barack Obama, agreed to this resolution. All President Obama had to do was have our ambassador raise her hand when it was called for the nays, and it would have been dead because we have absolute power at the UN Security Council. Instead, we abstained, consciously allowing the resolution to pass. Now, it was no surprise to me because they had threatened a year and a half before to do this, and they planned to do it. If Israel did not bow to the will of the Obama administration, they planned to stick a knife in Israel's back. And did they ever? So the above resolution is now enshrined in international law. What's this mean? This means that according to international law, Israel is an illegal occupier of East Jerusalem and the entire West Bank. Now, if Israel is an illegal occupier, what's the normal course of action to enforce the edicts of the UN Security Council? Number one, economic sanctions. So if Israel doesn't eventually comply to this action by the UN Security Council, then we can fully expect someday for sanctions to be introduced. And then if sanctions don't work, the next step is military invasion. Do you realize that your Bible prophesies the military invasion of Israel over Jerusalem? Open your Bible, read it for yourself. Zechariah chapter 14, verse 2, I will gather all nations against Jerusalem to battle. That's a prophecy of the coming battle of Armageddon. That's the reason I call this resolution 2334 the Armageddon resolution. The world took its first step to Armageddon on December 23rd, 2016, with the approval of the Obama administration. Sobering to say the least, but that's where we are right now. Okay, now, the left in Israel, we're talking about the liberal politicians and the people that embrace leftist policies, favor a two-state solution. Now, Benjamin Netanyahu endorsed a two-state solution during his Bar-Ilan speech at Bar-Ilan University in 2009. During the last 8 years, Netanyahu has virtually frozen building in the settlements in deference to the Obama administration and to Israelis that are left, to the Israeli left. And Netanyahu's coalition, however, is dependent upon the right, which adamantly opposes a two-state solution. A significant portion of Netanyahu's Likud party also holds this position that there should not be a Palestinian state established on Holy Land territory. They say, after all, we were supposed to get all of Israel and all of Jordan according to the Balfour Declaration, and then they took 77% of that away from us and made that Jordan. And so we only end up with 23% of the Balfour Declaration. Now they're wanting to cut us in half again. And we'll be 9 miles at the waist. They say it's just not fair. And furthermore, when they founded Jordan, that was supposed to have been a Palestinian state. So that's where the dispute is right now. Now, during Israel's 2015 elections, Netanyahu was fighting for his political life. A week before the elections, all the polls said he was getting ready to lose. Suddenly, Netanyahu made a hard right turn, and he promised there will never be a Palestinian state established on my watch. Well, this caused great consternation among the Obama administration, because just prior to this, he had attempted to negotiate a two-state solution during the negotiations from August of 2013 till April of 2014. When he made this statement, Martin Indyke and others in the Obama State Department said, as soon as you get finished with this election, you better move quickly to a two-state solution, because we're not going to guarantee you that we will continue to protect you against international action at the UN Security Council. So once he said, never a Palestinian state on my watch, then the votes came his way. He won the election. He put together a coalition. And then he quickly said, well, I didn't really mean that. I mean, within a week after the election was concluded. Now, many people supporting Netanyahu assumed that he was just playing both ends against the middle, because he formed a coalition, the only coalition he could put together, with Naftali Bennett's party, Israel Our Home Party, and Naftali Bennett is adamant against the two-state solution. He said, why should we create another Palestinian terrorist state? We've already got all around us Arab states that wish for our demise. Why should we, with our eyes open, establish another Palestinian state when it's already supposed to be ours as part of the Balfour Declaration? Well, let's come ahead to right now. Today, there's somewhere around 850,000 Jews that live in the West Bank, the area that the Bible calls Judea, Samaria, and that includes East Jerusalem. About 350,000 in East Jerusalem, about 400,000, maybe as high as 500,000 living out in the settlements of the West Bank. Now, several established settlements have recently been uprooted by order of the Israeli Supreme Court. What has happened is enemies of Israel have been searching old land records, discovering deeds that were granted to Arabs by Jordan during the 19 years they illegally occupied the land. Now get this point. Israel was declared a state by the United Nations on November the 29th of 1947. Also, there was an Arab state created there within given borders. The Arabs said, no, thank you, we're not interested. All we want to do is destroy the Israeli state. So that resolution was utterly rejected by the Arabs. The day after Israel declared their independence on May the 14th of 1948, 5 Arab nations launched a war against Israel, and one of those leading nations was Jordan. Jordanian troops came pouring across the Jordan River, and they made war against the newborn nation of Israel. Israel only had a population of 600,000. They didn't have all of the military capabilities of a well-established state. Nevertheless, they fought valiantly, and God fought for them. And they not only survived, but they actually expanded their territory somewhat. When the ceasefire was declared in 1949, Jordan occupied most of Judea, Samaria. They occupied what's called the West Bank, including the eastern part of Jerusalem, which includes the Temple Mount, where Israel wants to build her temple. Well, Jordan, who had no right to be there, they came over there to fight against UN action and fight against the newborn nation of Israel. They came across the Jordan River illegally and occupied it for the next 19 years. And nobody said anything. In the meantime, Israel's just trying to recover and get her roots down. She's building a nation from zero. Well, Israel still was a very young nation when Nasser of Egypt got together with Hussein of Jordan and also Assad of Syria in 1967 and decided we're able to wipe out this new nation. Okay, well, the point is this. Under the Jordanian occupation during those 19 years, they gave deeds to many lands to many Arabs. Now then, these enemies of Israel are going back, searching all the Jordanian records, and they're finding these documents that they gave to certain people. In the meantime, Israel, over the last 20 or 30 or 40 years, has granted building permits to Jews to build on this land, believing that it belonged to no one. So they may have been living there now 10, 15, 20 years. Then all of a sudden, someone shows up with these Jordanian documents saying, this is my property. You have built on my property. Then they take it to the Israeli Supreme Court, which is a very left-leaning liberal Supreme Court, and they've been ruling against the settlements and the settlers that live out there. Consequently, they order the houses demolished. And there's been several settlements uprooted through this process. Well, getting tired of this, and especially since Donald Trump has come to the presidency, Israel said, we've got to solve this situation. They recently adopted the settlement bill, which legalizes building in Judea, Samaria. Now, if documents come and are presented before the Israeli Supreme Court stating that someone has built on property that these Arabs owned, now then the Jews don't have to tear down their homes. There's a provision in here that now then the Jews can merely pay the owner for the land at the value, or else give 25%. Now let's continue on here. So the Jews have building permits, and yet they're ordered by the Supreme Court that they must tear it down. But now then the law says, this brand new law says that they can pay the amount of the land plus 25% or give them another piece of land of equal value. Well, guess what? Now this horrible injustice of tearing homes down that have been built 15, 20 years, they've now solved that problem. Now many people think that law will be declared unconstitutional by Israel. However, other Jews have other plans. The other thing this will do, this new law is going to remove fears of building in the West Bank. That means population is going to boom. Now, like I said, many people believe this bill will be struck down by Israel's Supreme Court. Now factions of the Knesset want to pass a law limiting Supreme Court powers to overrule the Knesset. See, they're fighting in Israel the same thing we're fighting in the United States, because their courts, their liberal courts, are legislating from the bench. Now, in the meantime, Netanyahu has been investigating on charges of corruption. They can't get him out of office by running against him politically, so now they're hoping they will force him to resign as prime minister. This would trigger new elections in Israel. Okay, one more thing. So Netanyahu came to America on February the 15th. He and Trump met together. Now, Trump has stated repeatedly that he would love to negotiate a deal between Palestinians and Israelis. He's appointed his son-in-law, Jared Kushner, as the special envoy to achieve this goal. And Trump had promised to move the U.S. Embassy to Jerusalem. However, he appears to be wavering on that promise now, like those before him. It could be that Trump hopes to move the embassy as part of a Palestinian-Israeli deal if he can get one done quickly. Some believe Israel sent signals that now is not the time to move the embassy. Okay, so that's where we are today. And Trump has signaled two-state solution, one-state solution. I'm good with it. So next week, we're going to show you what the Bible says is ultimately going to happen, so you'll know the future before it ever gets here. You've been listening to End of the Age.
From Here to Armageddon, a new exciting 8-lesson series to share with your friends and family. Order yours right away.
Answering many questions like, how far are we from the Battle of Armageddon? What will happen between now and then? Where are we on the timeline? Your questions answered in this exciting 8-lesson series, From Here to Armageddon.
Go to endtime.com or call 1-800-END-TIME. That's 1-800-END-TIME, 1-800-363-8463. Order yours right away.
Most people have dreamed of someday walking on the ground where Jesus walked over 2,000 years ago.
Take a trip of a lifetime with Irvin and Judy Baxter to the Holy Lands. We will take you through a biblical journey that will bring you to a new level of your love for Christ and what happened over 2,000 years ago.
You don't want to wait any longer. Make this the year of your life-changing experience. Please join us to experience the greatest place on earth, the Promised Land, with an added bonus, Rome, Italy.
Take your life-changing journey to Israel and Rome April 30th through May 13th, 2017. You won't want to miss this transforming trip. Reserve your place today. Call 1-800-END-TIME, 1-800-363-8463, or visit us at endtime.com.
If your station only carries the first 30 minutes of End of the Age, go to endtime.com and click the Watch button to continue today's broadcast. You can also finish up later by clicking the Archives button.
And look what I have. Just arrived at our offices a couple of hours ago. The brand new End Time magazine, First Step to Armageddon, December 23rd, 2016. Now, many of you have been donating to send one of these magazines to every single U.S. senator, every single U.S. representative, the president, the vice president, all the cabinet members, and many influencers around the country. And you have been doing wonderful so far. However, we're not finished with our drive yet, so I hope we will continue. Nevertheless, can you think about this? Every U.S. senator is getting ready to get a copy of this magazine, First Step to Armageddon, December 23rd, 2016. And we explain in this magazine why we would say such a thing. Don't you hope Donald Trump reads this article? Don't you hope Mike Pence reads this article? And then another article in this magazine. Could school choice save America? The Liberal National Education Association has had our children by the throat for many, many years now, indoctrinating them with such insane teaching that you can decide whether you want to be a boy or a girl. That's what they're telling them. They're teaching them such things as Heather has two mommies and all of the twisted mentality that has imposed itself on the American people during the last 8 years of the Obama administration. Well, school choice will take that power out of the hands of the National Education Association because it's going to allow you to send your children wherever you want to school. Charter schools, Christian schools, the government will give you a voucher for the amount of money allocated from tax dollars to educate your child. You talk about Christian schools coming back to life. Many of them have gone out of business because when people have to pay taxes to support public school and then they have to pay tuition to send their children to Christian school, it's a burden many could not bear. But would we love to be able to send our children to good Christian schools where they're not taught we've come from monkeys and where we're not taught all the theories of secular education, but where we can give them a true and biblical education? Well, let me tell you, this magazine is going to do a great, great job. So let me pause just a moment to say, first of all, if you're not a subscriber to End Time Magazine, you should do it right now. The number for you to call is 1-800-END-TIME. If you are a subscriber, then please consider paying for the subscription for your state senator, your U.S. senator, your U.S. representative, your governor. Call. If your state is totally taken care of, and we're right at halfway right now, and so we're doing good, and I want to thank all of you that have already contributed. Keep it up. We've had people call in and sometimes contribute $300 or $400, just put it wherever we need to fill out the map. Well, that's what we're doing, and we're going to finish it. I hope we finish it this week. So anyway, if you'd like to donate to every U.S. senator, every U.S. congressman, getting an End Time magazine, every single edition for the next 2 years, I'm telling you, we can make a difference. You and I together can make a difference. I just pray every single one of them would read First Step to Armageddon, December 23rd, 2016, because it'll let them know what the Bible has to say. It'll also let them know what all of us should be doing together. Let me say this, and we're getting ready to come to the phones now, but before we do, I was so gratified when at Donald Trump's rally, I believe it was on Saturday, when Melania Trump stepped to the podium and said, "Let us pray." And she began to pray, "Our Father, which art in heaven, hallowed be thy name." And as she prayed, I detected that a time or two her voice almost broke. I was so thankful. I was so gratified. President Trump said after she was finished, he did not realize she was going to do that. But it was like a breath of fresh air. Now, I know the liberal, they're out there howling that she did it. I mean, they're out there, how do you dare to pray the Lord's Prayer when there's atheists in our country? You may offend them, on and on and on. Ridiculous. We've never had to worry about that for 240 years until just recently. Well, let me tell you, thanks to God, the pendulum has swung back the other way. We ought to be very, very thankful right now, and I hope that you are. Well, I've got a full bank of callers. Got to get started immediately, so let's do it now. Let's go to Joseph calling from right here in Texas. Hello, Joseph.
Hi, I have a question. Over the years, I've heard the Sinai Peninsula, the greater area there, Iraq, Iran, Egypt, was originally the Garden of Eden, and that's the place where Adam and Eve was created. And so my question is, would Adam and Eve be considered Jews or Israelis? If not, where did that terminology come from, and the separation from them as our father and mother of mankind?
Joseph, in the beginning, when God created Adam and Eve, there was no such thing as Jew or Gentile. Adam and Eve lived in what is today Iraq, which is where the Garden of Eden was located. The description of the Garden of Eden, it was located where 4 rivers meet, the Tigris, the Euphrates, the Pison, and I think there's one other that slips my mind right now. Anyway, that was definitely in the area that is Iraq today. So, no, there were no Jews. So where did the Jews come from? The Jews came after Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. Jacob's name was changed to Israel, and Jacob had 12 sons. One of his sons' name was Judah. That's where we first hear the name Jew. So that's when Jews came into existence. And of course, that was long after Abraham. Judah would have been Abraham's great-grandson. That's where the Jewish nation actually came from, even though they were descendants of Abraham through Isaac. So it's Abraham, then Isaac, then Jacob, and then the 12 tribes of Israel were the 12 sons of Jacob. So that's the way that all worked.
Okay, thank you very much.
Okay, thank you, Joseph. Appreciate it very much. Let's go now. Let's go to Nadia, calling from Florida. Is it Nadia or Nadia?
Nadia.
Nadia, okay. What's on your mind?
You know, I'm going to thank you so much for your program. Your program is just beautiful, very nice, and I enjoy it tremendously.
Thank you.
Now, you talked about the prayer, the Lord's Prayer, when the wife of the president talked.
Yes.
That made me cry.
Yes.
That's so beautiful, so wonderful that our country turned around after so many, many years of prayer. I'm 86 years old, and the prayers, I think, of all the people brought God to help us and turn that country around. We were going right down the hill. But now, what my question is about Kamal Salim. Kamal Salim is a very courageous man, and he comes from the same country as I come. And the thing is, I was going to just say, if it's possible, he'll cover his face. Why is he so open, so much open near everybody, and we have so many people here that, you know what they're going to do. I mean, they're going to try and kill everybody that turns to Christianity. So I don't know. And he spoke the first Christian, I mean, coming from Islam, spoke the Quran properly. I know the Quran, and he said it properly, their life and the way they're going to do, what they're going to do in this country. So it's, I don't know how can I get the program. I like to try and get that program to see if I could send it to some people here.
Well,
I thank you so much, Mr. Baxter. You have no idea, Reverend Baxter. You have no idea how much I enjoy your program, and I call people to watch you.
Well, thank you, Nadia, and I want to say to you and everyone that
very
we
interesting and very education.
Yeah, Nadia, let me say this to you. We have the Islamic Invasion package that we're making available. It's 2 of End Times DVDs, and it's 2 works produced by Kamal Salam.
Kamal Salim, yeah.
Yeah, Salim. And if you're interested in those, you could call back at our 800 number, 800 End Time, and talk to our operators. You can get the copies of those that way, and those are available to you. And you know, you talked about his safety, Kamal's safety.
Yes.
I do not know where he lives. He does not disclose that information. I do not have his phone number. So even though he came on the program, and of course there's a certain risk to that.
I know.
By the time that program was aired, he was long gone from our studios. And so he does he has to remain somewhat secretive in his lifestyle because, like you say, there are people out there that would kill him in a heartbeat.
I spent the night praying for him.
Well, we appreciate that very much, Nadia. And I also would like to say to everybody, I'm going to let you go, Nadia. Thank you for your phone call. But I want to say to everybody listening, now, I had the same feeling when Melania Trump said, let us pray, and began to recite the Lord's Prayer. I was so moved and so grateful to God. But I also was reminded, God has answered our prayer, but we don't need to quit praying. And you know, God answered our prayer in somewhat of a strange way. A lot of people didn't think it was an answer to prayer, but it's turning out to be. And let me tell you, if you were adamantly opposed to Donald Trump, I understand, because some of the things he did in his past life, he's lived a sinful life. And so I understand you being opposed to him. The reason I felt like that God was going to use this man is because he was against world government. And we were very near the establishment of the one world government over which the Antichrist will soon rule. He was for the restoration of American sovereignty, which was almost gone. And he was also very much pro-Israel. His daughter married a Jew and has now converted herself to Judaism. Of course, I don't favor her conversion to Judaism, but nevertheless, Trump has now named her husband, Jared Kushner, as our envoy to negotiate the Middle East peace deal that he wants to get. So consequently, even though God has strange ways of fulfilling his will, it looks like that is actually in progress right now. But my main point is, don't stop praying. Just because Donald Trump has been elected, he needs your prayers every single day. And so all of you out there, I ask you, don't stop praying. Thank you very much, Nadia. Great to hear from you. And now then, let's go to Brian calling from West Virginia. Hello, Brian.
Hello.
You're on the air.
Brother Baxter, how are you doing?
I'm doing wonderful. Thank you.
It's an honor to talk to you, sir.
Thank you.
I had a question for you. I've had this on my mind, and I wanted to ask you. In Revelation 6, when the seven seals are open.
Yes.
The first rider of the four horses is the white.
Hey, listen, Brian. I made a mistake. I brought you on right before our break, and it's a hard break I can't avoid. Could you hang on for me? If you'll just hang on right there, I'll pick you right back up immediately after this break. You're listening to Into the Age. Don't go away. We'll be right back.
Have you ever thought, I want to make a difference in the political world by sharing what I've learned about Bible prophecy from End Time Ministries? But where do I begin? How can I make an impact? You can make a difference today. End Time Ministries is ready to share the truth with all of our lawmakers on how current news relates to Bible prophecy and how it's all happening right now in our lifetime. We are asking each of our readers, listeners, and partners to donate $29 or more to sponsor a 2-year magazine subscription per lawmaker or leader in this country. With your help, we can spread the end time message all across America. Partner with us today by donating just $29 or more, and that will go towards this world-changing cause. Our country will be glad you did. Call today at 1-800-END-TIME or go to endtime.com and donate to our Lawmakers magazine subscription. You can be a part of America's change today.
Real quickly before we go back to the phones, Alabama, haven't heard from you yet. And we have a total of, counting your governor, your House, your Senate, we have a total of 10 lawmakers there. Not one of them have been subscribed for. Some of the states are totally filled out. Arkansas, we've got 3 to go. Colorado, 4 to go. Wisconsin, 5 to go. Virginia, 12 to go. Virginia, we need to hear from you. Utah, We've got all 7 to go. No response from Utah. Tennessee, we have 8 left to go. South Carolina, 7 to go. Pennsylvania, 20. We've only had 1 subscribed for. And so we have 20 to go in Pennsylvania. That's the state that really put us over the top. So if you're out there in Pennsylvania and you'd like to donate so that End Time Magazine will be sent to your lawmakers over the next 2 years, make sure you call us. There's many others. A lot to go yet for Ohio, North Dakota, North Carolina, New York. We got big needs in New York, the state of Donald Trump. And then New Jersey, we have all 15 left to go. New Hampshire, Missouri, Mississippi, Minnesota, Michigan, Massachusetts, all of them are not yet taken care of. Kentucky, Kansas, Iowa. So we need a lot of help yet. So if maybe your state's already taken care of and you'd like to help somebody else's, please do. So the number to call is 1-800-END-TIME. $29 will pay for 1 subscription. $290 will pay for 10. $145 will pay for 5. Whatever God's blessed you with, whatever you can do. But let's wipe this out, because we're not going to sit idly by and just say, let's just let our nation go down the tubes. We got to fight for this nation. This is a biblically based nation, and we need to fight for this nation. Okay, I'm sorry, Brian, that I had to cut you off because our break hit us and I wasn't watching the clock as closely as I should have been. Are you still with me?
Yes, I am.
Okay, tell me your question again.
Okay. My question was in Revelation chapter 6, and the first and second verse, where the 7 seals are open. The rider of the white horse, it said that he went out and he had a bow, and he had a crown that was given to him, and he went forth conquering and to conquer. And my question was, I've heard different ministers in the Apostolic Pentecostal faith, which is what I am. I've heard people say, well, that's the Antichrist, and other people say that was Jesus Christ himself. But in Revelation chapter 19, the rider of the white horse was when Jesus rode, when he came out and said, and the heavens was open, and behold, a white horse, he that sat upon it, he was called Faithful and True, and in righteousness, and doth judge and make war, and his eyes were a flame and a fire, and his head had many crowns, and he had a name that no man knew but himself, and his clothes were as vesture dipped in blood.
Yeah, Brian, let me cut in on you here. I see what your question is, and the clock is ticking, so let me answer it quickly.
Okay.
The 2 horses, the 2 horsemen are totally different.
Right.
You're right that the white horse in Revelation 19 is Jesus Christ himself coming at the Battle of Armageddon, at the same time coming for his bride, the church.
Right.
It says there in verse 7, I will show you the bride, the Lamb's wife, for the marriage of the Lamb is come, and the bride hath made herself ready. And that's when he appears in the sky, and the Bible teaches the bride will be caught up to meet him in the air. Well, that's Jesus Christ. But the white horse in Revelation chapter number 6 is something totally different. I'm going to go fast here because it would take me an hour to teach this lesson adequately. And we do have a DVD called Islam in Bible Prophecy that goes through all these 4 horses. But let me just give you the short version. There are 4 horses: a white horse, a red horse, a black horse, and a green horse. Now, the King James Version calls it the pale horse, but that's an incorrect translation. Those 4 colors are the colors of 4 belief systems that fight for the minds and hearts of men and women today. The official color of communism is red. The official color of capitalism is black. The official color of Catholicism is white, and the official color of Islamism is green. This is, and again, without going into all the explanation because we don't have time, the white horse there is Catholicism. The person on the white horse was given a crown. That happened about 960 AD. Pope Gregory was the first one to have a crown. He went forth conquering and to conquer. Catholicism believes they should rule the world, and when the Pope is crowned, he's crowned as the father of kings and princes of the earth. They believe that he should rule the earth as a representative of Jesus Christ on earth. So the white horse is Catholicism, the red horse is communism, the black horse is capitalism, and the last horse, which was the original Greek word, was chloros, which means green. It should have been translated green, but the translator had never seen a green horse, and he thought these were literal horses, so he thought he had to bend things a little bit, so he translated it pale. But the fact is, it should have been translated green. That Greek word was used 4 times in the New Testament. Every time it was translated green, except in verse number 8 of Revelation 6. And he did that because he'd never seen a green horse. Nevertheless, green's the official color of Islamism. All 4 belief systems have official colors. They're all there in those 4 colors of those 4 horses. And that's all I've got time to tell you about today, Brian.
Okay. I was just wondering.
Yeah.
I was just wondering because and I hear it taught that they make it sound like they're coming.
Yeah. Well, I appreciate it very much. And by the way, this is...
Thank you, Brother Baxter. I appreciate your time.
You're welcome. And
God
by the
bless
way,
you and have a
this
good
is,
day.
for all of you out there, this is one of the lessons in our Understand the End Time series, 14 one-hour DVDs. And it will explain the 7 seals completely for you, along with the 7 trumpets, along with the 7 vials. It's a real education. If you've never been through the Understand the End Time series, let me tell you, get through it immediately. You need it now. The number to call to do that is 1-800-END-TIME. Let's get right back to the phones. I'm going to try to move really fast here, so please keep your questions as sharp as you can. Let's now go to John, calling from California. Hello, John.
Yes, sir.
What's on your mind?
That's over here in the United Church. And there's 2 things that I wanted to just release.
John, you're breaking up. You're breaking up really bad. I can't hardly hear you.
Can you?
I'll tell you
now,
what.
brother?
I'll tell you what. Unless you can change positions, I can't hear you well
Can you
enough.
hear me now?
Yes, I can.
Okay, so there's just real quickly 2 things I thought would be kind of significant to pay attention this year. Is one, there is a Jubilee year that is about to start since Israel regained Jerusalem in 1967.
Yes.
In June of this year. And the second thing is on June 1st, the Pope is hosting a conference with like 40 different charismatic churches to celebrate the day of Pentecost. And so those are just 2 things I just wanted to make note of that maybe to just pay attention because they may have some significance as we go along.
John, thank you very much. You say that's June the 1st. The Pope is going to be doing that. Will he do that in Rome or is he going to Jerusalem?
It's in Rome. All these charismatic churches are supposed to meet in Rome at that time.
Well, I knew they were thinking about going there, but I had not heard a date yet. If you have a publication that gives that information, I would love for you to maybe scan that and send that to us here at End Time Ministries. Send it to endtime@endtime.com because I've been looking for that information. I sure appreciate you calling with it.
You're welcome.
Okay, thank you so much. Let's go now to Robert calling from right here in Texas. Hello, Robert.
Hello, Irvin. I heard something beep there. Can you hear me still?
I sure can.
I got a question for you. We know that the global visionaries have been working on their global plans for decades, and they can't be liking what's going on with this populist movement and this nationalism that's not only here in America, but in some places in Europe. Can you kind of figure into what they're I don't know how to say it. They're not happy at all with this. Can you comment on what their thinking and feelings might be now?
Yeah, Robert, I sure can. The globalists are going crazy. they thought they had it in the bag. If they would have been able to elect Hillary, who is a dyed-in-the-wool globalist, she would have picked up right where Obama left off and would have ushered the U.S. right into world government. That's the reason I didn't think it was going to happen, because the Bible prophesies the U.S. will not be a part of the world government of the end time. And consequently, obviously, that has now been prevented, and I hope it's been prevented permanently. But the globalists, all the demonstrations you're seeing, everything, the continual drumbeat of negative news, and how even though Donald Trump has accomplished so much in a very short period of time, everybody's saying his administration is chaos, everything's going so bad, and they wish it were true. But nevertheless, that's what's going on right now. The globalists are having a nervous breakdown, and they don't know what to do about it. As a matter of fact, President Obama has started an organization to fight against everything that Donald Trump does, because Donald Trump is in the process of dismantling his legacy, including Obamacare. So we're in a real battle right now. Don't believe everything that you read, and don't believe everything you hear, because a lot of it is, in fact, slanted, if not totally fake news. Thank you a lot, Robert. Good question. Appreciate it very much. Let's go now to Wes, calling from Florida. Wes, make your question real quick.
I just have a comment, Dr. Baxter. It's good to speak to you again.
Thank you.
I was absolutely confident in my prayers and your teachings that Donald Trump was going to win the election. I got a lot of grief from friends and other people saying, how could you say such a thing? How could God possibly pick such a sinner? And I always went back to the same thing, and I thought of Paul and his persecution of the Jews and the Christians, and Jesus chose him for a very special mission. And I think the definition of courage certainly falls on Paul. He's just a wonderful choice by the Lord, and we don't think as God thinks. And so I knew confidently that Trump would win this election, and he did, and we should be thankful for it. And I knew that it was time for this country to turn around. So I just wanted to remind our listeners that the Lord sometimes works in ways that we can't understand.
Hey, Wes, I agree with you totally. I sure appreciate it. And let's keep praying for Donald Trump and all of his administration, because they still need God's help.
Amen. God bless.
Okay, thank you very much. Well, we're totally out of time. Late breaking news. All of Arkansas is now covered. Whoever did that, thank you. Thank you so much. Don't forget, call in, make a donation for our lawmakers. The number to call, 1-800-END-TIME. The latest magazine is out. If you're not a subscriber, take care of that today. The number to do that, 1-800-END-TIME. I love you all. God bless you all. Keep the faith. We'll see you again tomorrow.
End of the Age is a production of End Time Ministries. This broadcast will be available on our website, endtime.com, in the archives section. On our website, you'll also find more information about how current events are fulfilling Bible prophecy. To reach our operators, call 1-800-END-TIME. That's 1-800-363-8463. End Time Ministries is partner supported. We would like to say thank you to our partners who made this broadcast possible. To do what Matthew 24:14 said, to reach the world with the gospel of the kingdom.